everybody, I'm back today with another art journal page, and here's a first look at what we're making. I am starting out by using a Dreamy diagonal stencil and just a mini blending tool with some archival ink. It's a permanent ink, which is perfect for this. And I'm going to cover my entire back of this page with this stencil. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm going to use it as a grid so everything's lined up. I've also off camera taken time to cut out a bunch of squares that are the exact same size as the squares you see here created by the stencil. The idea being that I'm going to use the stencil as a grid, as I mentioned, so that all of the papers will line up. So it's like a cheat or a guide in a way. And again, this will help me keep everything 100% squared up and I don't get off on my pattern. So I've taken a bunch of these printed papers and I'm just going to start gluing them down randomly. I'm not going to create any kind of color pattern or anything with this. I want it to look just like a very randomized tile. I'm gluing everything down with Distress Collage Medium and a Collage Medium brush because I want them to be sealed and waterproof, which is what you will get when you use Collage Medium. Also, another thing that Distress Collage Medium does is that it dries very quickly. So it's nice for things that I'm paper piecing because, again, the papers won't move as I'm adding other paper layers and lining this up. I'm going to continue doing this by randomizing the color until I have the entire background covered. And then I'm going to stamp a hydrangea stamp by Woodware with black archival ink onto the top of this paper. The names of all the products and the colors that I'm using today are listed in the description below, so check that out if you want more information or to know the exact names and colors of anything that I'm using to create this art journal page. So I'm placing this stamp down and I'm going to press quite firmly down so that I get a good transferred image. And then I'm going to grab that diagonal stencil again and some white texture paste. And I'm going to spread it through this stencil with my palette knife. Now, because we used the stencil originally to create the pattern, it's going to perfectly line up with these squares in the background. And I'm going to just put the texture paste to create a border around a few of these square diamonds, whatever you want to call them. And I'm making sure that the stencil is firmly against the page, so as I'm pressing it through, I'm not having the texture paste seep or leak anywhere. I just want a nice thin coverage. And then I'm going to lift the stencil up and let this dry 100%. It takes about 30 minutes for my particular environment because of the humidity, but it could take a little longer or a little less depending on where you live. I'm also going to use that hydrangea stamp and stamp it on some more pieces of paper that are printed that I used in the background. These are the leftover scraps. And I'm just going to stamp it on several different pieces of paper and then I'm going to cut them out so that I can have some layered flowers as well. I'm going to glue all this down once again with Distress Collage Medium and I'm going to overlap the flowers on top of some of my stamping. Now the stamping is going to be covered up because it's more of it's there as a layering element more than I actually want to be able to see everything. So I am going to cover it up, but you'll see little bits of it peeking out around the flowers. I've also grabbed a Tickets piece of ephemera from the Spring Abstract ephemera pack, and I'm going to have it kind of peeking out around the different flowers that are in this sort of bouquet or a hydrangea bush, if you would, like it would grow in the front of your yard. And I'm using this ticket element because it also kind of mimics some of the stamping in the pattern that has this vintage travel motif. So it just made sense in there and I wanted another little bit of color and interest. So I'm just going to tuck that in between the flowers, but you could also just omit this or use something else. You don't have to have this particular ticket. I just liked it, but if that's not your thing, then you could use another image or just skip it altogether. So I am layering on all these flowers, and when they're all in place, I'm going to grab a Tim Holtz Small Talk sticker book, and I'm going to just place that down on top of the flowers. And then I'm also using some Stamperia rub-ons, and this is the Welcome Home Butterflies pack. And I've cut out the ones that I want to use because I find it's much easier if you have cut out your rub-ons, and then you can control the placement a little easier. So I've cut out 3 different butterflies and I'm just kind of, you can see here, putting them and moving them around the page until I decide where I want it to go. And then I'm using the Tim Holtz Ideology rub-on tool to just firmly go over the entire rub-on and then I will lift up the plastic and it will be in place. And this is my final element, so my page is now done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some ideas to use in your own artwork. I'd love to see what you're working on, so please take a picture or a video and post it, and tag us with hashtag #ArtJournalJunction so I can check out what you're making. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and also check out these other 2 videos that you might like. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything we post in the future.